What's up guys, War History Geek here, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Strongsville Historical Society Military History Museum. So this was a project that I've been taking part in since about May of 2023. It is now November 11th, 2023. And today we had the grand opening of our exhibit to the public. Between me and my team, we've put in probably a couple hundred hours at best. And it's really come out to something incredible. Now, of course, there's always still room for improvement, so we're going to be continually working on this project. But today was the official opening of this exhibit for the public viewing. Now, exhibits in this are going to be switching out on about a 6-month to 1-year basis. So what you see in here might not be in here within the next year. However, the military museum itself is going to be a permanent exhibit here. So I did record quite a bit of the process of building this museum, so I may or may not publish some other videos on my channel talking about the process of assembling this museum, but this is the official tour of the final product, as we saw today on November 11th, Veterans Day 2023 at the grand opening. So let's just get right into it. So as you walk in here, first you see this large poster board exhibit talking about the French resistance during World War II. So this wasn't originally my idea to include it in this. This was a museum board project that I put together for a presentation a couple of years ago at this point. You can see quite a considerable amount of information on it, but we figured we have some empty space, so we might as well fill it up with something. So then taking a look over here, we have our World War I display. So this was put together by one of our team members. Most of this is on loan from his personal collection. And I'll get a nice close-up in here, and you, of course, can pause it however you want to read some of the details here. But as you can see, a lot of paper ephemera, and a lot of connection back to Strongsville. Here we see over here, this is a standard just infantryman's uniform from World War I with a standard helmet. And this uniform over here is actually an officer's uniform from a veterinarian unit, as you can see there on the collar. This belonged to Dr. Mylan P. Fuller. He was a veterinarian, and you can read about him there if you'd like. And as you can see, lots of interesting information. I'll zoom in there. Of course, you can read all of this if you want, or not. It's up to you. Just enjoy the tour. Taking a look down here, you can see some more information. You can see a songbook back there, and then you can see the unit photo for Dr. Mylan Fuller's unit, and you can see where he's labeled in that picture. And then taking a look down here, we have some basic World War I militaria. Over here, we have a little plaque talking about the First World War in America. And then as you turn to your left, you see our Revolutionary War soldier here. Now this is like right in your face as you walk in, which I think really completes the space. But as you can see here, this is kind of the introduction to military history in Strongsville, Ohio. So this we thought was a great exhibit, not necessarily part of the overall exhibit. We hope to include more Revolutionary War items in the future, but we thought this was something really nice to put in here that really just grabs your attention as you walk in. So now as we take a look this way, you can see a large U.S. Army winter coat here with a hat and a bag, and that is connected to early Roy Presson. So he served in the U.S. Army Air Corps in World War II, and he was heavily involved in fighting. So as you can see here, we have his uniform with his ribbon bar on there. He was a gunner, a waist gunner on a World War II aircraft. And as you can see here, there's a photograph of him. He was a member of the Lucky Bastards Club, which means that he had to complete at least 31 missions over enemy territory to be a part of that. So very interesting. And as you can see, there's a number of his personal manuals on display, his uniform bag here, and then his officer's summer fatigue uniform. Taking a look there, you can see information pertaining to his biography, as well as some artifact identification. And as you can see, this is tied to him as well. Taking a look up here, we have, in my opinion, the centerpiece of the World War II, World War I collection here. Starting over here, we have Myron Weller. He served in the U.S. Navy aboard LST-849 in the Pacific and participated in the Okinawa Gunto operation from May of 45 to June of 45. So very interesting there. Here you can see some information about him. You can, of course, pause it still, as well as a photograph and a picture of his ship, as well as artifact identification. And there you can see up there his ribbon bar. Now, if we take a look over here, we have the Robert Harrington collection. So he was the first casualty of World War II in Strongsville, and he was killed in action in North Africa in 1943. As you can see here, we have his funeral flag in the collection, as well as his portrait photo from the family, as well as the hand-engraved Purple Heart with his name on the back. Unfortunately, at this time, I can't show you the back of it. However, in the future, I hope to do showcases on each individual item where I'll make a lengthy video talking about the individual veteran themselves as well as their artifacts. However, right now, this is just a general tour of the museum. Here you can see here, artifact identification. And then taking a look up here, on this side, you can see the poem that was written and published in the local newspaper upon his death. And I'll zoom in there so you can see that, as well as the poem, which I thought was quite nice. And then taking a look over here, you can see his little biography there. There's the second page. And then moving over to the right side of the case, you can see Rodney Weller. And of course, yes, he is the brother of Myron Weller. So we have two brothers on display here. As you can see here, he's a little bit better decorated than some of the other guys in here. He served in the 102nd Infantry Division, and you can see a number of insignia here on his chest. And then he also served in the 4th Armored. We're unsure exactly where the transfer happened or which unit he spent more time with or which unit he saw more combat with. However, we're doing our best to try and research that and figure that out for sure. As you take a look at the side over here, you can see a service slash and bars, as well as some insignia. And then taking a look down here, you can see his biography, artifact identification, as well as his Army Good Conduct Medal, dog tags, and a photograph of him. Now taking a look over here, we're going to start down here. This is Myron Raymond Morhart, and he is also fairly well decorated. He served from the early 1940s up through the 1950s in the Army Reserves. So you will see actually another uniform of his in the later era case. However, these are his two World War II era uniforms. So taking a look over here, you can see his khaki tunic. And then over here, you can see his earlier war tunic with all of his insignia. Down here, you can see his biography. A little bit of information on him there. And here you can see information talking about this tan service uniform here, as well as his dog tag and the patch here, which is referring to, I can't recall the name off the top of my head, but I'll put it on the screen here. This is referring to a highway that he was involved in because he was a part of the Quartermaster Corps. Then taking a look over here, you can see more information about his service uniform there, as well as a photograph, and then information talking about these Army camouflage coveralls, which this will get a video of its own. If you know about these, you can know that they are certainly a very, very rare piece. And these were actually donated to us after we reached out to the family who originally donated these uniforms, and then we got back out to them again to see if they had any more items that they hadn't donated before or any other information. And then they ended up coming up with this, which is just truly spectacular. So yes, there is going to be more information on this. I'm not going to go into too much of the logistical detail in related to that right now. And then taking a look up here, this is a collection that you should recognize. This is the George Kai collection. So as you can see here, we have his service uniform on display over here, as well as some of the war trophies, his Japanese flight jacket, as well as the Japanese Type 95 officer's sword, and some of the other little things. So let's start over here. As you can see, there's a portrait photo of him back there, as well as the Japanese flight jacket. Down here we have the sword out of the sheath on a very great looking sword stand, which I cannot take credit for that idea. However, this is just really great. I love how this blade looks, especially with it shining down on it, which is just truly a spectacular looking thing. Now, taking a look over here, you can see some of his personal items. You can see his dog tags, which I did not show in the original video because these are actually on loan from the family. They did not give those to me. And then also some other miscellaneous insignia, which we covered in the video. Here we also have a ring from Manila that, again, I did not cover in my original video, but you can see here on loan from the family, as well as a couple of banknotes that he picked up as souvenirs while he was out there. Over here, you can see his abbreviated biography, as well as his artifact identification sheet. And then down here at the bottom of the case, you can see the Type 99 Japanese-era Saka rifle, as well as the Type 30 bayonet that goes along with it, that again was also captured by George Kai, and now it's also on display in the museum. So again, if you haven't checked out that video where I talk about the George Kai collection in detail, you should definitely check that out. If I can figure out how to do the tag thing, I'll add it in here. However, for right now, make sure to go check out that video on my channel. Now, moving along over here, we have this case, which we refer to as the Unsung Heroes. So starting up here, we have the Ike jacket of the technician 5th grade Thomas F. Timlin from Cleveland. And this was actually donated to us by our local VFW. This uniform was dropped off at the VFW by somebody at some point. They have no idea who dropped it off, where it came from, or anything like that. And according to the VFW, they get so many items like that that they just don't know what to do with, that a lot of times they end up donating them or even throwing some things away. So we were very happy when we reached out to them that they gave us a whole bunch of items that they were just going to get rid of. And one of them actually turned out to be quite a spectacular item. So as you can see here, here's some of his ribbons. And then down here, you can see quite something spectacular. You can see he has 7 service bars and then 1 service slash. So that is a pretty rare thing to see on some of these uniforms, and we were really taken aback to see that. Taking a look here, you can see his biography as well as some information about his Ike jacket there. And then taking a look over here, we have a collection referring to Charles Jerome, who also is a resident of Strongsville. And for starters, we talk about Strongsville and Okinawa. He worked at a company called Jerome Welding Supply Company that contracted with the government in World War II to produce parts for tanks. And as you can see here, the part he actually produced is identified right here on the tank. It was involved in the ventilation system to prevent tanks from flooding out their engines while they took part in amphibious landings. So here you can see that was a really cool story that we learned about. No physical artifacts to go along with it. However, seriously an interesting story that we wanted to include. And then here you can see a photograph of the sign. Taking a look down here, you can also see that Charles Jerome served in the military as well, post-World War II on occupation duty in in Germany. So you can see his artifact identification list, as well as some of the items from him in relation to that. Taking a look down here, we have the uniform of Lieutenant Howell Forrester. And as you can see, he was in the Navy Reserves. He likely worked a desk job. But this was, again, another item that was donated to us before we even really started the military museum project. But we were able to, based on what information we had, based off the items they donated to us, piece together what we think is a pretty accurate interpretation of what he did in the service. We're hoping to get in contact with the family more to get more information, but we're fairly confident of what we have written down right now. So as you can see there's a photograph of him. And then taking a look down here at the bottom of the case, we have the chairborne unofficial patch, as well as his dog tags and a couple of pieces of insignia. Over here, we have the description of his uniform. And then back there, we have his biography. Taking a look right next door, we have information about Dorothy Reese. She was enlisted in the Women's Army Corps in 1942. and we had a small collection of items donated to us, but we thought it was a perfect little collection to include in the Unsung Heroes of the military exhibit. People that necessarily weren't in frontline combat, but were completely necessary to allow us to win the war. So as you can see there's a little write-up on her, as well as some artifacts from her. Taking a look over here, we have a set of World War I women's Red Cross uniforms. Now, of course, this isn't exactly military related. However, they were extremely important in the war effort, treating wounded soldiers. And these are from Minnie Ella Cathy. Again, she was a lifelong resident of Strongsville. And as you can see there's a pretty brief write-up on her. And then as you can see over here, we have a photograph of her wearing one of the uniforms. So again, this was something that was actually originally in the collection. This wasn't something that we sourced for this exhibit as we built it out. But we were happy to finally get it fully researched and identified and put in a high-quality display. Now that comes to the end of the first room here. So now we're going to cross over into the second room. So walking straight in, you can see this octagonal case, and this is the last part of the World War II artifacts on display. For starters here, this is the Frank Fritz collection, which I've also covered on my channel. This is from my personal collection. And again, if you haven't checked out those videos, make sure to check those out. Those were done quite a while ago on my channel, and I'm planning on revisiting this collection in more detail soon. But for right now, this is currently in the museum with these really great looking numbers that we have here. So I'll do a quick walk around to get a look at all of these artifacts. So as you can see, there's personal items, there's paperwork items, there's souvenirs, war trophies, as you can see here with the SS dagger that I've covered on my channel before. Some more German items. Here we have the Danish bayonets that were used by the Germans after they took Denmark. There you can see a battle map of the 5th Armored, is what he served in. And then these are some post-war items. He was involved in the 5th Armored Association. And then over here in this last section we have some smalls, including his dog tags, as well as a German Zeiss camera that he picked up while overseas. Taking a look here, we have his identification list for the artifacts, as well as his biography. All right, now turning around here, now we have on the home front and the Cold War. So starting up here at the top, we have a collection of home front related items, such as the Aircraft Spotter's Handbook, which is from my collection, as well as a record that would have been sent home from the front during World War II. Or I'm sorry, somewhere in the United States they would have recorded that, which, again, this is something I plan to do a more detailed video on my channel at some point, but for right now I thought it was a good fit for the museum. And here you can see a little bit of artifact identification. Taking a look down here, this is discussing rationing. So as you can see here, we have ration coins, ration coupons, ration books, a little bit of information on rationing if as somebody coming in doesn't really know a lot about it. And then since Strongsville was a farming town during World War II and essentially all the way up until the 1960s, we do have a farm record book that's not from a local area. This is from my personal collection as well, but it was a good fit for the museum. And then here we have some more rationing related items. Taking a look down here, this is our Red Cross section. So here we have a uniform from a woman that would have been training at a hospital school. We have some more home front items framed down there. And then it's a standard U.S. Army Red Cross blanket and some other miscellaneous items with the Red Cross cotton being on loan from me. And then also the artifact identification. Now we're coming to the Cold War, and this is a particularly interesting item. So civil defense in Strongsville, you did have to register with the local government and all that, of course, and you would have been issued your own ID card. And these are actually the original printing plates for the form over here that you would have had to fill out to register, and then your identification card that you would have been issued upon registering. Now these were recovered from a print shop up in the Cleveland area, and the company went out of business. Eventually the printing presses were bought sometime in the early 20-teens, and then by a local print shop here in Strongsville, and they were gifted this box of old print engravings, and then they identified them as Strongsville and gave them to the Historical Society. So those are really, really interesting and quite a rare find. and something that we might want to consider being able to reproduce in the future. Taking a look down here, we have a standard civil defense helmet as well as some artifact identification. And then here we have assembling the fallout shelter, survival under atomic attack, which is the first official handbook issued by the U.S. government in relation to nuclear attack, as well as some defense saving bonds books. Also, we have a fallout shelter sign back there, and these 3 items are on loan from my personal collection, and some of them I believe I have featured on my channel. Taking a look down here, we have some standard rations, survival crackers by the Kroger Company, which I do have one of these in my collection. However, this is not mine. This was in the Historical Society collection. And then this small grouping of items of miscellaneous, emergency things that would have been used, which I also have on loan from my collection. Taking a look up here, we have From Cold War to the War on Terror, a little bit of write-up there. So for context, if people don't really have a good understanding of history coming in. And then taking a look here, as you can see, this is our Cold War to War on Terror case. So starting up here, this is the Women's Air Force uniform of Loretta Mixel. And as you can see here, we have the uniform. This took quite a bit of time to complete as it was missing a lot of items. And then here we have the photograph of her as well as her unit photo and a little bit of a biography on her. This was particularly impactful as this was kind of loaned to us last minute, and the family did get to see it, and it was a very emotional experience. They had never seen this uniform complete before, so they were ecstatic to be able to see this complete and see it on display for other people to learn from. Here we have the Army green dress uniform of Raymond Morhart, which I mentioned earlier, but this is from the 1950s. So as you can see there, we had to complete it a little bit, but now it's on display, as well as his cap here. And then a little bit of biographical information there. Taking a look over here, this is Brian Cruz, and he served fairly recently. He was discharged in 2006. So we have a couple of his Marine uniforms here. As you can see, he was fairly well decorated. Very shiny metals, of course. Beautiful blue Marine uniform, as well as his standard greens. We have his dress sword here that would have gone on the white belt. As you can see, very great engraving there. And then here you can see a little bit of biographical text on him, as well as artifact identification down there. And then finally, taking a look around this corner, we have the ACUs of Ron Uline, which you're going to see another piece from him later. But as you can see there, that's some of his insignia. And then a little bit of artifact identification there. Taking a look down here, we have the fatigues of Picano. He served in the Vietnam War with the Seabees, and this was actually picked up at a local estate sale by one of the members of our team, and this was put in the museum. And then here we have a little bit of identification there. Taking a look over here, we have the service uniform of the Vietnam era. However, this was actually worn in the 1980s in Germany by one of the members of our team that helped us put together this museum. And as you can see here, this is the newspaper talking about the ceasefire in Vietnam, as well as the Vietnam Service Medal. And then we have a little bit of a write-up there talking about those Vietnam War camouflage jungle fatigues. Over here, we have the Air Force fatigue uniform of John Maloney. So as you can see here, we have his uniform here, U.S. Air Force. He was in communications. We have a short write-up here on him. Of course, we have the photograph of him there. And then we have a small grouping of items, his dog tag, his insignia, and here we have one of the tools that he used. Then we also have artifact identification. Taking a look over here, these two uniforms are from James Brickley. Once again, we actually don't have a biography for him. We don't have a lot of information on him yet, but we're hoping to get back in contact with the family to get a little more information and write up that biography. But we do know what ship he served on and what awards he had because they were donated with the uniforms, as well as some of his other accolades and stuff like that here. And then if you take a look over here, here's some artifact identification. And that's the ship he served on. And then lastly, taking a look in the bottom here, we have planning tools for U.S. and Soviet weapons. Here we have some Soviet cap and collar badges, the West German Border Guard's German-English dictionary, and then, of course, some West and East German caps here kind of showed the adversarial artifacts of the Cold War. Those are on loan from my collection as well, actually. And then lastly, we're taking a look at this last side. So coming across here, we have the Brickley and Manoil lead toy soldiers from pre-World War II. Of course, you know that they stopped production of these leading into World War II because they needed to use the lead for bullets. So these are fairly rare, and this is actually an almost complete collection. They're very hard to come by in a complete collection, especially the Red Cross stuff. And we were happy to have these already in here from the previous exhibit that used to be in this building. Now taking a look over here, this is our Civil War exhibit, and this is the exhibit that needs the most TLC. This is what we were able to put together for the grand opening today. However, we have a lot of evolution that we're hoping to put into this, including hoping to get a replica Civil War uniform from a unit that was drawn from Ohio that would have had veterans from Strongsville. So taking a look here, you can see abolitionists from Strongsville, as well as some Strongsville soldiers. Here we have a handful of artifacts, such as the New Testament that was carried during the Civil War. Some bullets and buttons, Uncle Tom's cabin, as well as some artifact identification here. And then here we have a letter that was actually written to a woman who lived in Strongsville. It was the sister of the soldier that wrote this. He was writing this, William Curry, the F Company of the 82nd Ohio Volunteer Infantry Regiment. And he was writing this at the camp in the fortifications at Chattanooga, Tennessee, September 26th, 1863. And we actually know from the family that he was killed 2 days after writing this letter, killed in combat. So we have the original letter here that he had written and sent home, and then we have the typed up transcription of the letter for people to read. Taking a look down here, we have talks about the Underground Railroad and its connections to Strongsville, as well as some other artifacts here. Here you can see a medal of the Grand Army of the Republic that belonged to James Newton, who served on Johnson's Island on Lake Erie, which you can Google that if you want more information for the time being. As well as some information, again, about the Underground Railroad in general, some books, and then again, artifact identification. Lastly, taking a look at the bottom here, we have a couple of bayonets on display from the era, as well as a model cannon alongside some cannonballs. As you can see, this is a little empty down here, so we're hoping to fill this up with some more kind of equipment, accoutrements, and stuff like that. But of course, this is what we have to work with for the time being. And then some more artifact identification. Now this is Afghanistan here, so a little out of place in compared to the Civil War. This is also one of the other items on loan from Ron Uline. And as you can see here, this is his Afghanistan flight suit, as well as one of his squadron identification scarves. And then here you can see his write-up here. So pretty interesting information there. There's a lot to cover in his story, and I may or may not get the opportunity to cover that on the channel, but that's a little taste of it there. So as you can see here, as we're getting close to the Christmas season, they do have a tree on display, and then we do have a special exhibit just for the holiday season, and this is Christmas in the Trenches. So starting up at the top here, you can see we have some festive tinsel and all that, very vintage looking. At this top shelf here, we have Merry Christmas. This is from the 5th Armored Division. This is actually from the collection of Frank Fritz over there in the other case, as well as some miscellaneous Christmas cards and such. This item is also on loan from me. Here we have the mailing label to send Christmas gifts to Army Expeditionary Forces in 1918. One shelf down here, we have some Christmas cards, as well as gifts from the Germans to their soldiers. That was very common in the First World War. So we have the Princess Mary gift tin for every sailor afloat, every soldier at the front from 1914. The Crown Prince Wilhelm Commander 5th German Army gift pipe. And then, of course, the German Red Cross Christmas gift cigar box from 1916. One more shelf down here, we have some more cards on display and some notes. As you can see here, here's some descriptions. And then down here, we just have a couple of little things filling in the bottom, such as a eagle and a Teddy Roosevelt doll. And that completes the Strongsville Historical Society Military Museum. So, as you can see, it's a small but mighty museum. There's a lot of great things on display here, a lot of great stories being told about the local area, both in Strongsville and the surrounding areas in Cleveland area. I was super happy with how this museum came together. A big thank you goes out to all of the supporters, whether it was members of our team working on this exhibit, other volunteers of the Historical Society, as well as everyone that showed up to the grand opening today, and all of the officials that came today to give on kind words for the opening of the exhibit and to celebrate Veterans Day with us. There's a lot more content to come from this exhibit. We're not just going to end it here with this tour. As I mentioned earlier, I hope to give a focus on a lot of these artifacts and collections on the channel. Specific veterans, we want to talk about their stories, showcase their artifacts. And what's great is I have another great filming space in this museum where I can film stuff and talk about it. I'm also hoping to maybe conduct some interviews with some of these veterans that are still alive, which again, we can also do in this space. And overall, there's a lot of great things to come from having this museum open. So if you guys enjoyed, make sure to hit the like button, and when you're in that area, hit the subscription button and notification bell. I have plenty of other videos coming in the near future. Maybe not just like this is quite a special occasion, but I have plenty of other videos in the works that I hope to get to uploading. So make sure to stick around for the next one. See you guys later.